right now, I'm going to insert some questions from past PSLE question, including 2019 PSLE question. Okay, there will be one question that I'm going to discuss, which is relevant to this technique, which is from last year 2019 PSLE Science PSLE question. Okay, so you can see how we can apply this strategy to actual past PSLE question. Okay, all right. So sorry for my messy hair. Okay, all right. So first of all, you may be asking, what are experiment type questions? Okay, now experiment type question is extremely common in the PSLE. Okay, basically questions which involve some kind of experiment. Okay, it has experimental setup, right? Where you want to achieve a certain goal, you want to find out something. Okay, you set up an experiment. Okay, and the question will ask you questions related to the experiment. Okay, and it can carry up to 30% of the entire paper, and it's quite a heavy weightage. And other type of question involve concepts, application. There are different types, but experiment type questions, from my analysis, it can carry up to 30% of the entire paper. So it's quite heavy. And if you are able to master how to answer experiment type questions, you should be able to do quite well in some of the questions. Okay, so experiment type questions require you to identify the aim of the experiment, to formulate questions, hypotheses. You know, you must be able to design a fair test, right? You must be able to analyze data, right? Be able to collect data, analyze data, and then answer the questions related to the experiment type question. Okay. Now let me show you some examples of experiment questions in the PSLE here. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is taken from last year PSLE. Okay, question 33, this is the open-ended question. Ravi wanted to investigate the conditions needed for leaf growth using 3 types of soil. Now this question is relevant also for P5. So this is not, you should be able, P5 student, you should be able to answer this question as well. Okay, so 4 pots of identical plants were placed in the same area within a garden. The diagram shows the 4 pots of plants after 2 weeks. So you have 4 sets of setup in pot P, Q, R, and S, and the different types of soil, garden soil, sandy soil, clayey soil, and availability of water. So yes, no, yes, yes. And then the question they ask you, state which pot must be compared to conclude about the effect of each variable on the leaf growth. Okay, so this is a 2-mark question, relatively simple, but you must be able to understand the concepts of how to answer an experiment question and to design a fair test. Okay, and we will answer this very shortly. I just want to show you the different kinds of questions that may appear in the PSLE. Now, this is the continuation from the earlier question. Okay, this is the continuation. So just now was part A, right? It was quite easy. And this is the second part, okay, where they give you a table, and the table shows you the data which has been collected. All right, so Ravi conducted a second experiment to find out how the amount of fertilizers affect leaf growth. So he conducted a fair test, okay, planting the same number of plants in 5 big pots, W, V, W, X, Y, Z, and the pots are filled with garden soil. And this is the result of the experiment. Okay, and they ask you, what can Ravi conclude about the effect of fertilizers on the leaf growth? And part C, they ask you explain why the results of Ravi's second experiment cannot be used to improve the leaf growth in pot S from his first experiment. All right. Okay, now let's take a look at another type of question. Okay, we will address this question later on. Okay, this is another type taken from another year, PSLE. Okay, David conducted an experiment on photosynthesis. Okay, so the P6 students, and you may have learned about photosynthesis by now. Okay, this is taken from the MCQ actually. All right, and Devi repeated her experiment by increasing variable X and keeping all the other variables constant. Constant means the same, and the results are shown below. So they show you the data, collect the data in the form of a graph. Okay, then they ask you what could variable X be. All right. Okay. Now let's take a look at other questions. Now, this is on the topic of forces, right? Have you all learned forces, the P6 students? Evan? Yes? Okay, so this is for the P6 students. So you can see here, this is a past PSLE question. Ming Hao conducted an experiment using the setup shown below. Right? She measured the distance the block moved after releasing the spring. So he repeated the experiment using blocks made of the same material, but with various mass and area of contact with the table. His results are shown below. So there is a table, okay, and some data, right, related to the question, okay, and they ask you a question relating to this experiment. Again, this is taken from past PSLE question. Okay, I'm just showing you what we mean by experiment type question so that you can understand. Okay, later on, what I will do is that I will share with you, if you see any kind of experiment question, what are some of the questions that you should think of, all right, before you actually attempt the question. Okay, this is another question on energy, sound energy. So Rita wanted to study the effect of some materials on the loudness of sound. Again, this is a past PSLE question. He set up an experiment as shown below, and he covered the open side of a soundproof box, okay, with material P, and the clock was set to ring at certain loudness. He recorded the loudness of the clock with the sound sensor placed at a fixed distance, and repeated the experiment using materials Q and R of the same thickness as material P. Okay, so the tables are shown below here. All right. Okay. This is another example on past past PSLE question on experiment on the topic of light. Okay, topic of light, you all have learned in primary 4. Okay, about light energy, about reflection. So you can see here an experiment, and then this is the result of the experiment. Okay. Okay. Now, so before we tackle experiment type question, we need to know some of the key terms. Okay, some of the key. So those students in my class, the P6 student, I will have touched on some of these keywords. Okay, number one, if you see any experiment question, you need to know the aim of the experiment. Okay, what is the meaning of the aim? Aim is the purpose of doing the experiment. Okay, a scientist or an investigator who wants to conduct an experiment, he does not do an experiment for fun. Okay, there must be a purpose or an objective for doing the experiment to guide the experiment to achieve a certain objective. Now, the tricky part is that in the PSLE, sometimes the aim is clearly given, but sometimes the aim may not be given at all, or they may give you partial aim. All right. And later on, I will share with you, if let's say they do not give you the aim of the experiment, okay, what are you going to do? Okay, there's a way to derive, to find out what is the aim of the experiment. Okay. An hypothesis is a tentative prediction for a scientific problem that can be tested for further investigation. All right. So when you create an experiment, when you want to conduct an experiment, you must set a hypothesis. Hypothesis is a prediction. What is going to happen in an experiment? Okay, so when any experiment, there could be several hypotheses. What do you think can happen? And based on this hypothesis, you design the experiment so that you can find out, or you can derive a conclusion from the experiment. Okay, data. In any experiment, there must be, you need to collect data. Okay, so for example, if you want to find out, how much light can pass through a certain material. Okay, so maybe you use a data logger and with a light sensor, and you can record the amount of light being detected. Okay, if you want to find out, let's say you want to find out amongst your classmates who can run the fastest. Okay, so perhaps you get everybody to run in a fixed distance and you time, right? Whoever runs the shortest, have shortest time taken, that means that you are the fastest. Okay, so in any experiment, we must collect data. All right. Okay, next one. Okay. Next one. Right, change variable. Okay, change variable is very important. Okay, some of you are saying slow down, it's too fast, please slow down. Okay, don't worry. By the way, for your information, I've recorded this session. Okay, I've recorded this session. Speak slow. Okay, I will try my best. So sorry. Okay, I will slow down. Don't worry. Okay, I've recorded this session, and later on I will upload to our Edufront YouTube channel, and I will email the link to all your parents. Okay, so that's a good thing of having this online lesson. I know some of you may not be able to attend, so you can later on when I give you the link, you can go to our our YouTube channel, and you can replay this again and again and again at any time. Okay, so because sometimes I need to rush a little bit because time is quite short, and okay, and I don't have the luxury of time, because there's a lot of things that I want to share with you. Okay, all right. So if you have any question again, please write down on a piece of paper. And if you are not able to address, okay, if you see me in class, you can always ask me in class, or you can send me an email. Okay. Okay, some will ask, is this only for P6? No, this is for both P5 and P6. All right, mainly for P6, but for P5 students, I believe it's very important that you know, that you learn as early as possible, because the questions at P5 will be quite similar to the questions at P6. Okay, so there's a very big gap between P4 and P5. So P5, the questions that you see later on in your exams, I know some of you will not have your CA1, but your MIA exam, the questions can be quite challenging. All right, so P5 and P6, the standard or the level or the difficulty of the questions will be very, very similar. Okay, okay, let's continue. All right, change variable. Now, change variable is very important. All right, change variable is also known as the test variable. It's what you want to test in the experiment. Okay, for example, one of the questions just now in 2019 PSLE, right? The objective is to find out how the different types of soil, okay, affects the growth of the leaf. Okay, and these different types of soil, this is called the change variable or the test variable, meaning that what you want to test in the experiment. Okay, let me go back to the question just now. So you can see here, right, the test variable or the change variable will be the types of soil, right? So this is what you want to test. And very importantly, there can only be how many change variable in one experiment? How many change variable in one experiment, class? Only one. Very good. Right? There can only be one change variable. Otherwise, it will not be a fair test. Okay? Otherwise, it will not be a fair test. Right? Okay. So you can see here. Okay. Let's answer this question since we are at this part. Which pot must be compared to conclude about the effect of each variable on leaf growth? Let's say the type of soil. Okay, now can you tell me which setup would you use to answer this? Okay, let's say this is the change variable. Which setup would you use? P, Q, R, S, everything, or only one or two? P, R, N, S. Okay, P, R, N, S. Very good. Why? Why we use P, R, N, S? Why not Q? Why not Q? Anyone? No water. Very good. You see, if we use Q as well, right? Q does not have water. Okay, so meaning that this is also change, right? So here we will have two change variable, then it will not be a fair test. Correct? Not to have a fair test, all the other variables must be kept the same, must be kept constant. Okay, the only thing that can change is the type of soil, which is garden soil, sandy soil, and clayey soil. Okay, so you all understand the concept of change variable. Okay, let me go back to here. All right, so there can only be one change variable. Okay, otherwise it will not be a fair test. So a fair test is a very important concept that you must design, that you must have in the experiment. Okay, so that you can use the result of the experiment and you can make a conclusion from the experiment that you do. Okay, the next one is the fixed variable. Fixed variable is the variable which must remain the same. Okay, it is also known as the constant variable, right? Like just now, the experiment that we saw just now, the fixed variable is one of it is the amount of water given. Now, you cannot give some setup water, but other setup you don't give water, right? Because that is fixed. That should be the same. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Next thing then. Okay. I'll try to go slower. Okay. Fuchun Fuchan, are you okay? Right. Now, result of the experiment. Result of the experiment. Now, in any experiment, you must collect data, right? When you collect data, you must present your data. Okay, there's no point we do experiment, but nothing is being collected. Okay, let's say you want to find out in your class who is the best in maths, for example. So your teacher need to do a test, and from the test, your teacher need to mark, and your teacher need to share the results, right? So you want to find out who's the smartest in maths, for example, or the smartest in science, right? So likewise, in any science experiment, okay, you must collect data, and the result of the experiment, you must present it. Okay, you must present it to to people. Okay, it can be presented in the form of table or in the form of graph. Okay, and the result of the experiment is also known as the dependent variable. Okay, some schools, some of your teachers may use the term dependent variable. Some schools may use result of the experiment. Sometimes they may also call measured variable. So it means the same thing. Okay. Okay, Putri asks, is there a difference between dependent and independent? Yes, very different. Okay, independent variable is also known as a change variable. Okay, independent variable is a change variable, but result of the experiment is the dependent variable. Why we use the term dependent? Because the result of the experiment is dependent on the independent variable. Okay, it is dependent on the independent variable, which is the change variable. All right, Ken? Okay, next one is control setup. An important setup in an experiment designed to minimize the effect of variables other than the change or the independent variable. Okay. Now, control setup a little bit complex, and I'll discuss this later when we have the questions. Okay, let's take a look at the next part. Okay, a fair test. Now, what does a fair test means? Changing only one variable at a time. That means you only change, there's only one change variable while keeping all the other variables the same. And conducting a fair test is one of the most important criteria in a very good scientific experiment. Okay, you can only have one change variable, you cannot have more than one change variable. Right? Now, reliable test. Now, some students may be confused, okay, between a fair test and reliable test. Okay, you may be confused between a fair test and reliable test. Now, what does reliable test means? Okay, reliable test means that the result of the experiment, you cannot conduct the experiment only once, and you tell them that, okay, I can use, and then you make a conclusion from the results. You cannot, right? You must have more than one experiment. You must conduct more than once. Okay, example, let's say a very simple example. You want to find out in your class who can run the fastest. Okay, who can run the fastest, and then you time. Right? When you time and when you time, it could be that the result of the experiment, it could be that there could be some error, right? It could be human error, it could be equipment error, okay? So that's why you cannot do the experiment only once, right? So you repeat the experiment, and then from the experiment, you can take the average results, okay? Because there are many things that can happen when you conduct the experiment. It could be the experiment, the equipment is faulty. It could be that you make an error, human error. Okay, so usually at your level, it is sufficient to repeat the experiment twice or 3 times, meaning that minimum 3 times you conduct and then you take the average reading. Okay, so that is what we mean by reliable test. You repeat the science experiment, okay, to verify that the results are consistent and not by accident. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, this is a 5-step thinking process. Okay. So I always tell my my student, okay, we have a secret way, okay, of answering experiment question. Okay. And if you are able to use or follow these steps, you should be able to answer any kind of experiment question on any topic quite easily. Okay, remember, experiment question, okay, can appear in any type or any topic. Okay, it can be on life sciences or it could be on physical sciences. Okay. Okay, everybody, are you all okay? Okay, please refrain from chatting with one another. Okay, you need to focus. All right. Okay, if I see anybody chatting one another, maybe I will ban you from here. Okay, please, you need to focus, and everybody have to, you cannot distract others as well. All right. Okay, please focus. If you have any question, please write down on a piece of paper. Okay, later on, last 15 minutes, I will get some of you to answer, and I may even call some of you to answer questions related to what I've discussed. Okay. All right. Okay. So, what are the 5 steps when you see any experiment question? Very simple. You need to remember, all of you, by today, I want you to remember these 5 steps. Okay. Later, I will ask one of you, a few of you to answer. Okay. Step number 1, you need to identify the aim of the experiment. Okay. You need to identify the aim. All right. The aim of the experiment, usually it is given, but sometimes they didn't give you. So if the aim of the experiment is not given, what do you look out for? Anyone? What if the aim of the experiment is not given in the question? Now, sometimes they make it a little bit challenging for you. They do not tell you the aim very clearly in the experiment. So what should you look out for? The change variable. Excellent. Okay, you look out for the change variable. Now remember, how many change variable can there be in one experiment? There can only be one, right? And change variable, you will be able to identify. Okay, you must be able to identify the change variable. Otherwise, it's very difficult for you to answer the question. Very easy to identify. The change variable is what you want to test. Okay, it's what you want to test in the experiment and what is different in the experiment. Right? Like just now, the example I gave you, it is the type of soil. So you can see one is clayey soil, sandy soil, and garden soil. So that is the change variable. And from the change variable, you can state the aim of the experiment, or you can construct the aim of the experiment. Okay, after you identify the step number 2, after you identify the aim, step number 2 is identify the constant variable. Like I say just now, the constant, the change variable is in the aim. All right, constant variable is also known as a fixed variable. So everything else must remain the same. Now, sometimes in the science experiment question, they purposely give you more than one constant variable or more than one fixed variable. Do you know why? Do you know why they purposely give you more than one fixed variable? Why? Anyone? To trick. Okay, not only to trick you, to stress, to get more marks, no. Okay, what are the type of question that will proceed on or that will follow on from having two change, or having two change variable? Okay, if you have more than one change variable, what kind of question that they will ask you? Okay, now sometimes they ask you more, they give you more than one change variable, right? Then the question they will ask you is that, is this a fair test? Very good. The answer is this a fair test? And then secondly, they may ask you, what can you change in the setup to make it a fair test? That's a very common type of question, right? They give you more than one change variable, and then they ask you, is this a fair test? And then you need to know, right? You need to identify if there's more than one change variable. If you identify, you spot there's more than one change variable, then you must state this is not a fair test, and then you must be able to explain why. Okay, the reason why it's not a fair test. And then secondly, they may ask you what changes can you make to the setup to ensure a fair test. Okay, so then you need to write down what change that you need to make in the setup. All right. Okay, so once you identify the change variable, the constant variable, and the aim, step number 3 is to identify and analyze the results. Okay, like I said just now, the result of the experiment can be given in the form of table or can be given in the form of graph. This is very tricky, especially graph. Okay, later on, perhaps I have another webinar session, online lesson on how to analyze graph. Okay, but at the moment, you must know that the result of the experiment can be given in the form of table or can be given in the form of graph. And graph got different types of graph. Okay, it can be bar graph, can be line graph. Okay, it can be even a pie graph or pie chart. All right, so you must be able to analyze the result of the experiment. Step number 4 is where you need to identify the science concept that they're testing you. Okay, now sometimes the question can be quite challenging. You are confused. Hey, what are they trying to test me? What questions or what topic, right? From which concepts they are testing you? Sometimes you don't even know. Okay, it can be quite challenging in the PSLE, some of these questions. All right, but you need to know. That's why the science concept, the science topics, it must be at your fingertips. You must be able to remember, right? Remember, in the science exam, it's not an open book exam. You cannot open your book and review the science concepts. You need to remember, right, from P3 to P6 topics. Remember, PSLE, you need to remember, you need to know, you need to learn all the topics from P3 to P6 because everything will be tested. Okay, so the P6 students, if you have CA1, please remember to revise your P3 to P5 topics as well, not only the P6 topic. So I'm telling you now, and in fact, those of you who are in my class, we started in November and we have already revised P3, P4, P5 topics. Okay, those of you who are not in my class or who are P5, perhaps what you need to do is that you need to start the revision process. Okay, so CA1, usually they test you the previous year's topic. All right, so I'm P6, so you must remember everything. Yes, Aisha, you must remember every single thing. Okay, all the topics that you have learned in P3, P4, P5, and P6. Okay, and it's a good thing that you do learn now. You prepare for CA1, and then your media exams also you prepare, and then finally by prelims or PSLE, okay, all the science concepts will be, you will master all the science concept and you remember very well already by then. Okay, what if suddenly forget? Fuchun say, what if suddenly forget? Anybody have any idea? Anybody can advise Fuchun? Fuchun asks, teacher, what if I suddenly forget? How? Take picture. Take picture, how to take picture during the exam. Read back, take note. This one before the exam, yes. Okay. Write notes, mind map. Okay. Doa, Haziq say doa. Read in your head, revise until remember completely. Okay, Fuchun, you can see so many advice, right? Okay. So please remember, please make an effort. Okay, Fuchun, you need to make an effort to remember. Nobody can help you to remember, you know. All right, you need to make an effort. Okay, you can see your friends give you so many advice, notes, mind map. Sarah say don't cheat, please. Copy. I don't think you can cheat during the exam. Okay. All right. So write down notes, questions. Okay, until you remember. Now, when you one good thing is that rather than just reading, some students they just read. Now, when you read only, you cannot absorb or you cannot remember a lot. Okay, what you need to do is that where you need to write down notes also. When you write, you are using your eyesight and you using your hands, and you're using your different parts of your body to help you remember. Okay, and if you talk about it, let's say you teach your friend, okay, or you talk to your friends about the science concept, it's even better because you're using visual, you're using your speech, and using your hearing, and using your head, right, to remember the science concepts. Okay, that will help you even better. Okay, Mirza asks, will you teach this again in class? Yes, of course. I will teach everything again, and in fact, in our P6 class, P6 program, I target to finish the entire syllabus by May or by June latest, and then from June onwards until your prelims, we will revise until your PSLE. Okay, so my target is for everybody to aim to get an A star. Is it possible, everyone? Can aim to get A star or not? Yes, okay, so you need to make effort. Okay, you need to make early effort, cannot last minute. And remember, not only science, you have other subjects as well. So you need to start to prepare early. Okay, now let me continue. Okay, now step number 3, analyze results. Step number 4, identify the key science concept. And step number 5, this is where the most important part is. Okay, where you need to explain the link between the science concept to the context of or the question. Okay, so after you identify, you analyze the data given to you, the change variable, the fixed variable, and then you have identified the key science concept. The step number 5, the challenging part, is to be able to explain. How do you explain the result of the experiment using the science concepts? Okay, remember, you are in the science exam, you are sitting for science exam. The examiner wants to see your understanding of the question. Okay, they expect you to use scientific concepts in your answer. It is not, you cannot answer like a English comprehension question. Even though your answer may be correct, but you will not get the marks. You may get 0 marks because you are not answering the science concept. You are not showing your understanding of the science concept. Okay, that's the tricky part of science exam. Okay. Okay, let's start. Let's give some example. Now, this question, some of you may be familiar. All right, so you can see I put here in terms of a table. Okay, all right. Yes, some of you have seen this before in the class. Okay, so this is past PSLE question. Let's take a look here. So Zainal wanted to investigate which material was best at reflecting light. So from here, right, you need to investigate. You need to identify what is the aim. Okay. Secondly, step number 2, identify the change variable and the fixed variable. All right. Step number 3, like I mentioned just now, identify and analyze the results. And step number 4, identify the science concepts. And step number 5, okay, to see the link between the science concept to the question. Okay. So let's go a bit quickly here. Now let's analyze this. So you can see here, what is the aim? To investigate which material was best at reflecting light. How do I know this? From the first line. In this question, you can see it is very clearly given to you. Right? This is the aim of the experiment. Right? So what is the change variable? Next step is, what is the change variable? The type of material. Okay, how do you know? So you can see here, in the aim of experiment, okay, you can see the change variable. Okay, you can see the change variable, and this is also the change variable here, right? Material P, Q, R, and S. Right? What is the fixed variable? The amount of light. This is the fixed variable. The height of the material and the torch from the ground. Okay, this is fixed. Right? Remember, everything else must be fixed. And the dependent variable is X. X is the dependent variable, the distance between the torchlight and the material, right? And this is the X. You can see here, X is the results. Okay, and the dependent variable or the result of the experiment or the measured variable, this is what you collect, right? So from there, you identify, analyze the result. You can see that X is greatest with material Q. Okay, you can see material Q has the greatest X, and material P has the lowest value of X. All right, so this is how you analyze the results, right? You analyze the result in terms of which is the greatest and which is the smallest. Okay, and depending, for here is quite straightforward. Sometimes you need to identify the trends, right? Is it increasing or decreasing? Sometimes you have more than 4 change variable, there are more than 4 materials set up, then you need to be able to identify all. Okay. Okay. Next one, let's take a look at the next question. Okay, now this is on question on sound energy. Another past PSLE question. Okay, let's read together. Rita wanted to study the effect of some materials on the loudness of sound. She set up an experiment as shown below, and she covered the open side of the soundproof box with material P. Okay. So what is the aim of the experiment? What is the aim? To find out if the type of material, okay, the effect of some material, you can see here, this is the type of material, right? Material P, Q, and R. So this is the change variable. Okay, this is the change variable. That means the material, this material here, material P, material Q, and material R. So this could be maybe metal, cloth, or fabric, and maybe glass, for example. Right? We do not know, but they just tell you that it is made of different types of material. So she set up an experiment below. She covered the open side with a soundproof box with material P. Okay, and there's a sound sensor here. All right, sound sensor. So the clock was set to ring at certain loudness. She recorded. So the loudness of the clock, it must be fixed also from here. And she recorded the loudness of the clock with the sound sensor placed at a fixed distance. So again, this is the fixed variable, right? It must be fixed. The distance from the sound sensor to the material must be fixed. Otherwise, it's not a fair test. And she repeated the experiment using material Q and R of the same thickness as material P. Again, material P, the thickness of the material must be fixed. It must be fixed. Okay, otherwise it will not be a fair test, right? Remember, you are only testing the type of material. All right, the thickness, the thickness of the material must be the same. All right, and so from the table, right, we can see that material P allows most amount of sound to pass through. So you can see material P allows 80 units of sound, right? Allows 80 units of sound. Material Q allows only 30 units of sound. Okay, so it means that what? What does it mean? It means that which material allows more sound to pass through? Which material is more soundproof? Which material is more soundproof? Material P more soundproof, are you sure? Material Q, material Q is most soundproof. Why? You can see here, it is the least, right? Okay, so material P allows most sound to pass through, while material Q allows the least amount of sound to pass through. Okay, and why the key science concept? Sound energy travels and pass through different materials. So material Q is the best at reducing the amount of sound energy passing through it. So let's say you want to make a curtain, right? And you do not want sound from outside your house or outside your room to disturb you sleeping, right? So which material would you use if you do not want to be disturbed, or you want to be least disturbed by the sound outside? Obviously, you use material Q, right? Because material Q allows the least amount of sound energy to pass through. Okay, so you can see this is an example of an past PSLE question on experiment. All right, okay, on the topic of energy, sound energy. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. Everyone okay? Devin, how are you? Okay, Haziq asks, what are the keywords to find which is the aim? The aim is usually given, okay, one of the key things to identify whether it's an aim or not is to see the change variable. Right? The change variable is always in the aim of the experiment. And it is usually at the start of the experiment, they tell you, right, the aim, right? What is the aim of the experiment? Like this question, let's take a look. This is 2019 PSLE. I've not discussed this in class. So this is the first time that we are going to discuss this question. Okay. Now, you can see here, Ravi wanted to investigate the conditions needed for leaf growth using 3 types of soil. What is this? What do we call this class? This is the aim, right? This is the aim. And remember, I told you just now, the aim of the experiment will contain the change variable. So what is the change variable? What is the change variable? The change variable is the type of soil. Very good, the type of soil. Okay. Now remember, there can only be one change variable and other variables must be kept constant. Example here, availability of water. Here, yes, got water, no water, yes, yes. So there's a problem with this setup, right? Okay, there's a problem with this setup. Correct or not? Because we can only change the type of soil. Here, garden, sandy and clay. But other things must be the same, right? Including the availability of water. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay? So before you attempt this question, you should ask yourself these 3 questions. What is the aim? What is the change variable? What is the fixed variable? Okay? And remember, this is a 2-mark question. So type of soil is P, R, and S. What about if you want to test availability of water? Okay, if you want to test, if you want to change the change variable to availability of water, which setup will you use? If you want to test the availability of water, which setup will you use? P and Q. Excellent, very good. Okay, you should use P and Q, right? Because if you want to test for availability of water, you must keep the type of soil the same. Okay, you must keep the type of soil the same. And the type of soil here is garden soil. You're not testing the garden soil, right? You want to test the availability of water. So you need to use setup P and setup Q. Okay, Sarah asks, what does availability of water means? Whether the plant receive water or not. Okay, whether the plant receive water. Okay, but Aisha asks, but the availability of water is the change variable. Yes, this is the change variable if we were to test this. Okay, if we were to test this, right? But here is different. It's different from here. Here they are just asking, if you want to change, if you want to make the availability of water as the change variable, which pots would you compare? Okay. Exactly. Yeah, there are two types. Now, sometimes in one question, they can ask you, they can give you multiple aim. So you need to be very, very alert. Okay, they can give you multiple aim. Like here in this question, initially they tell you that they want to test for the different type of soil. But this part is to test for different type of soil. But then they ask you, if they don't want to test different type of soil, but instead they want to test availability of water, which pot should you compare? So you need to be very flexible, and you need to be very alert, and you must be able to address the question. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the part B. This is only part A. So part A, they ask you to state which pot, 2 marks. Very easy, you get 2 marks. Not really easy. Easy if you understand the concept. If you don't understand the concept, then you got problem. You're not able to answer. Now let's take a look at part B. Okay, this is the answer for A just now. Okay, part B. Okay, let's take a look at part B. Ravi conducted a second experiment. This time around different, this time around, the change variable is the, anybody can tell me, what is the new change variable now? What is the new change variable? What is the new aim? You can see, part B is already different story already. The change variable is the amount of fertilizer. Very good. You cannot just say fertilizers. Fertilizer, are you talking about the type of fertilizers? Are you talking about the what? The amount, the color of the fertilizers? Right? So here, the change variable is the amount of fertilizers. So you can see here, this is the change variable. So the amount of fertilizer changes 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. Right? So this is a different setup. And they want to compare. So he conducted a fair test. So they tell you it's a fair test, planting the same number of plants in 5 big pots. Okay, and the pots are filled with garden soil. You notice that now they only use one type of soil. Can they use different types of soil? Can they use garden soil here and then clayey soil here, sandy soil here? Cannot. Otherwise, it will not be a fair test. Here, the change variable is only one, right? Which is the amount of fertilizers. Okay. All right. So here, now this question is what we call a relationship question, right? They ask you, what can Ravi conclude about the effect of fertilizers on the leaf growth? Basically, they ask you to conclude. Okay, they ask you to analyze the data. And remember, it's a 2-mark question. Now, can you all answer? Okay, please write down your answer here. It's a 2-mark question. They ask you to analyze the data from the result of the experiment. What can Ravi conclude about the effect of fertilizers on the leaf growth? Someone asking, when is the lesson ending? Devin, why are you hungry? Is it increasing? If you put the one word increasing, do you think you can get any marks? Remember, this is a 2-mark question. Okay, this is a 2-mark question. Yeah, you can eat now, Akmal, no problem, as long as you are listening. The increase, the more fertilizers, the less the area of the leaf. Okay. As the amount of fertilizer increase, the amount of leaf growth increase. So you can see here, a lot of you got problem, A lot of you got problem. A lot of you, maximum, you get 1 mark. You all know why you all get 1 mark only? Please read carefully. See, analyze the data properly. Analyze the data properly. Most of you, maximum, you get 1 mark. You say the more fertilizer, the faster the plant grow. They never ask you, they ask you about the leaf growth. Please take note. Okay, these are the 2 variables that they ask you to compare. The effects of fertilizers and the leaf growth, meaning the amount of fertilizer. So you need to compare, number 1, how does the amount of fertilizers affect the leaf growth? Okay, how the amount of fertilizer affect the leaf growth? When fertilizer increase, the growth of the leaf increases. Okay, Naufal, only 1 mark. So you can see, if you look carefully, do you see that at first it increase, and then after that it starts to decrease? Can you see that? You see, a lot of you never see properly, you know. All of you say as the amount of fertilizer increase, the surface area, the leaf growth increase, right? But no, you can see here, at first it increased. But there are two parts to the answer. From the first up to 10 gram, the leaf growth increases, right? Okay, the leaf growth increase. But after that, it decreases, right? After that, it decreases, okay? Okay, so how to answer? As the amount of fertilizers increase, okay, as the amount of fertilizer increase, the leaf growth increase, but beyond or after 10 grams of fertilizers added, the leaf growth decrease. Okay, the leaf growth decrease, or the surface area of the leaf will decrease. Okay, if you add more fertilizers, the surface area of the leaf will decrease after 10 grams is added, right? Okay. Okay, now so you can see there are two parts to the question. The first part, you must say that as the amount of fertilizers increase, okay, the leaf growth increases, but beyond 10 grams, right? Beyond 10 grams of fertilizer added, the surface area of the leaf actually decrease. Okay? All right? Okay, so it's already 6:55. We have overshot. So we have about 5 minutes for the Q&A. Okay, there are about 5 minutes to Q&A. Now, anybody have any questions? Okay, please write it down. Any questions, class? Please write down. Anna asks, what is clay soil? Clay soil is a type of soil. Usually you can find in the construction site, right? Construction site, the soil, it is very clumpy, wet, right? When you carry it, you know, it feels very clumpy. Compared to sandy soil, it will flow very quickly, right? Water can pass through very easily, but clay soil, if you pour water, the water does not seep through easily. Okay, that's the difference between clay soil and, say, sandy soil. What are science concepts? Okay, science concepts are the concepts in every topic that you learn. I give you an example. Okay, let's talk about, let's say, on the topic of heat. What is the important concept on the topic of heat? All right, we know the important scientific concept is heat, how heat travels. Like heat travels from region of higher temperature to region of lower temperature. So that is a key science concept. See, on the topic of magnets, what is the important science concept on the topic of magnets? Right, magnets has two poles, right? The north pole, the north seeking pole, and the south seeking pole. And you know, another important concept in magnets is like poles, like poles repel, unlike poles attract. So that is another concept. All right, on the concept of, say, on the topic of water, for example, let's say evaporation. What does evaporation means? Evaporation is the change of state from liquid state to gas state. So when that happens, it gains heat and it changes from liquid state to gas state. So these are science concepts. You need to identify every topic. They are important science concepts. It could be 3-4 concepts, right? And how to know this? You need to take a look at the syllabus, and you need to take a look at your textbook, every topic, and usually it is summarized at the back of the topic of the chapter. Okay, usually it's summarized, and you need to remember those. Okay. Okay, question. If a question has 3 change variables, how do you do? Okay, a fair test cannot have more than 1 change variable. Sometimes they can have more than 1 change variable. Then the question will go like this: is this a fair test? Then you need to answer, this is not a fair test, and then you need to explain why. Okay, or they can ask you, okay, how can you make this experiment a fair test? Then they ask you to state the different ways to change. So depending on the setup itself. Will this online lesson helps to get us A star for PSLE? Definitely not. It's not as easy as you listen to this online lesson and you get an A star. Okay, there a lot. Okay, you need to make a lot of effort to revise at home, to do your work, to revise diligently, to go to school and listen to your teachers and do the worksheets and to practice. Okay, do past year questions. There's a lot of work to be done. There's no shortcut. You need to make effort. You need to train. You need to make daily and consistent effort, just like maths and other subjects as well. Teacher, you'll be having maths? Yes, I'll be having maths at 8 o'clock later on. So I will see you again at 8 o'clock if you have registered for the class. Yes, maths will be live also. What marks should we aim for PSLE, usually according to opinion? Of course, if you ask me what to aim, I will tell you aim for an A star. But depends, depends on you. If let's say your P5, you have been getting, let's say a D or an E, I think maybe if you can get a B at PSLE, it will be quite an achievement, right? If let's say you have been getting B and C, if you can get an A, it's quite an achievement also, right? Science is one of the difficult subject to score an A star compared to maths. Trust me, some will say, teacher, sure or not, maths is very difficult to get an A star. Maths, if you are good, means you are good. You can get an A star because maths is either your answer is right or wrong. There's no gray area. But science is a little bit tricky, right? Sometimes when you overthink, you may not get the right answer, right? Even though you may be very good in your studies, but you may not get the right answer. So that's why science is a little bit subjective, a little bit tricky. Okay, right? So if let's say you have been getting an A, let's say you have been getting an A for science, so you can definitely, or you should aim to get an A star. Okay. What is the mark to pass PSLE? To pass, you need obviously all C, but of course your target is not only to pass, because when you go to secondary school, there's such thing as express stream, normal academic, or normal tech. Okay, express stream means you do your O-levels in 4 years. Normal academic, you do O-levels in 5 years. Normal tech, you not get to do O-levels, you do N-levels. In fact, those of you who do very well, you score 250 and above, you can even skip O-level totally. There's such thing as integrated program. Okay, so those of you who are scoring at least 1 or 2 A star, you can target to score 250 and above, so that you can go to schools which offer integrated or IP program. That means you straight away skip O-levels, straight away you can do your A-levels at the end of 6 years. Okay, that's better, right? So you need to study very, very hard. You want to get 300, not possible. Okay, Fuchun asked a very good question. How to check science answers? How to check? Okay, first of all, frankly, you will not have time to check. Okay, you got time to check or not? So far, your P5 exams, do you have time to check? Not much time, Okay, if you have time, then usually what you need to check is you need to reread the question and see your answer, whether your answer matches the question, whether your answers is complete enough, whether they are scientific concepts. Okay, for MCQ, you need to check also. Sometimes you may shade wrongly. So these are some of the things that you can check for your science exam. Okay, class, it's already 7:02. I think some of you may want to have your dinner. All right, so thank you very much. And those of you who have registered for maths, I see you at 8 o'clock. Okay, bye-bye.